You must be exhausted.
I'm exhausted. I'm quite exhausted. I'm also very anxious, like just general crazy anxiety. Okay, good. This is working. All right. That seems frighteningly simple.
What can go wrong?
Okay, so that's in there.
The what? All right.
Let me think. Oh, yes, today's program.
Yes.
The wrong machine for that. Yeah. All right, so first let me get this to him.
Still useless.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It does. Does go on. The lights go on.
The lights will go on.
Some of the lights go on. Not in the lecture. You're on the bottom.
And what else? You will just get the mic from me.
Okay. So now what I need to do is I need to open this computer up. Andrew, I'm all set here. So, you know, once you're ready, I'm ready for you.
Yeah, as soon as we are
Okay. Where are we now? I got a message from her last night. Her name is Pamela. Varun, no. That's not what I wanted to do. Varun Wald. Okay, so now what I need here is I need today's program. So to do that, I go. Yeah, I close that. This is what I want for today, Thursday and Friday. Okay, so I will file, save a copy. Okay, so I've got today's updated program.
Oh, there's an update.
Well, it's not different from yesterday. It's just got today on it.
Oh.
Thursday, Friday. I'm just going to call it that.
But the talks are the same as well.
Yes, yes. Desktop. Okay. Did you get some sleep?
from here, we asked yesterday I had to go to the football match.
A football match. Yeah. You're coaching. Wow. You're a coach at Cape Town Spurs?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
But So the reserve team, the juniors.
Okay. So I used to have connections with Ajax Cape Town.
So
Is it the same?
Yeah.
The Greek brothers, what were their names?
that's the Ari and Alexei.
Yeah. Dad was born in Amsterdam.
Okay.
And one of his cousins is van Praag.
Right.
And Michael van Praag started Ajax Cape Town with these guys.
Yeah. Well, okay. Sure. That was your connection.
So that's family. And now he's just been reappointed.
Yeah.
Now here's something I didn't know. That you can open your WhatsApp web on 2 different computers at the same time. Did you know that?
Have you ever tried?
I wasn't ever tried until right now. I thought it was going to say it's going to go off here. Okay, so this I need to send there, so I can close that. Oh, don't even need to do that. But let's see if that works. Okay, so now
Where's Kaylee today?
she had to go and do a chore this morning, so she's
Right.
coming in a bit later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that worked. Okay, so now I can close this.
Oh, yeah, you can jump in your Uber back. That's fine.
Okay, closing that. What happened last night that I don't know about?
Yesterday, some other students at the market yesterday evening
Oh,
together again.
hello. I went straight home to sleep.
Yeah, I wish I had done. I must go this afternoon just after lunch. I must leave. I've got so much to do for the paper that needs to be submitted. Everyone wants something. It's annoying. I wish my email was going sabbatical together with me.
It's awful. Okay, so let's get this right now. Who's that person again? SASREAX
The what?
Conference. I'm gonna have to send it for repair. Okay, good. And now what I can do, I can open it and I can make this share my screen, and then this thing will be displaying today's program. Okay. All right. So there we go. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And I can go to Zoom and I can go, got it. And I can go share, I can switch off my video and I can go share screen. I can share this here. And then I can make this full screen somehow. View. Full screen, where's full screen? How do you go full screen on Word? Is it F10 or F11 or?
Why don't you convert it to a?
I could, but that's too
Yes,
many
isn't
keys.
it? Isn't it under?
I thought view.
Yeah, display.
Let me try F11.
Zoom.
F10. F10? No. F11? No. F12? No. Yeah. Doesn't matter. It's not essential. It's not essential. There was a way. Okay, so let's check at the Zoom. Yeah. Oh, and then let me just send the Zoom link. We send the Zoom link. Participants, invite, copy invitation, and this must go. We got one speaker this afternoon who's coming in online. And that is Sarah. Sarah.
I think it's all. It says here. It's forward.
What time is your talk?
And you drink coffee.
Oh, thanks, AJ.
Want one?
Yes, please. 16:20. So no, 16 hours 20. So around 4. All right, let's test all of this. I'm going to go and see if my Zoom is working. We can do what we can do. We've had 3 successful days, which means we are more than 50% successful.
Now we can stop. No, but yeah, you know,
So far, so good.
how many details,
Oh, no,
you know, what the load shedding, okay,
let's see. Start a little back up. Okay, so let's see. I'm using my phone next to the computer so that we can stay. Right. I'm as organized as it can be. One more thing to do.
So they're gonna put it below. And then we want to drop the leaf on the. So those leaves that we use for the. Bring the other long one, that long one. Which means that. No, they're not, I'm not gonna be paid the around. I'm not gonna be. Yeah.
if I point to this side, people on that side will put it in. Thank you. Because I get because I get criticized for every single thing that if I that's like told you everybody probably. It's not too much. Not anything wrong with maybe. Well, but they tell you what from that. I have to get it's an issue. The situation makes it very difficult. As I say, I have given an idea about the risks. Negotiate, and there was negotiation. It's really not easy, and there was negotiation. Way to negotiate.
That's not rational. No, it's
If you should put effort into saving the people down from the flood instead of. The whole time. Making me from getting employment, time, child, all of that.
How does that come?
Yeah, oh yeah, we can just find it. You need to get it. Actually.
Okay. So I'm connected. We got power.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it. Can I bring my laptop there? Okay. Have we got power over there as well?
Not too sure. I think there
Okay.
might be another lead.
Okay. Okay. We don't really need it because I think the power should last there long enough. Right. So, can I plug in here? Okay. But Wi-Fi, you have Wi-Fi. I'm using my phone, which is fine. Okay, I'll just keep it on my phone for now.
Basically, what?
What's that?
The Vasa apparently does.
Check now. I'm not doing here. That's the wrong thing. Leave it to plug in. There, it's working. And the mouse is working. Are you? Okay, let me see if I can connect to. No, I can. Oh, wait, I can. The same as yesterday. Let's see if that works. Let's see if that works.
Thank you. Done. Sorted.
Yeah, maybe you want to put on the
Yeah, I
video.
see this Iraqi's talk this morning stimulated a lot of interest. I think it's long overdue to have these discussions, and I'm hoping that many of the topics that the Iraqi is going to come out later on today as we start engaging more with how people are affected by the various different.
This is the second one. Is this?
Yeah. Okay, no, it's not that one.
Just give us a moment. While we're busy doing that, can I make a comment?
Yes.
Just picking up storm pieces, let's say. I just wanted to pull out what Colin Dana said yesterday, that it's not just the warning. The warning is the last resort. It's the planning and the preparation and the application of regulations. And I'm thinking here in particular on the case of what happened in Durban, where people were building and living in the wrong place. And that has got to be managed. I wanted to say that, but now I'm just going to quickly share the screen.
Logan, we've lost 7 minutes. I'm going to ask you to cut your talk short. That's fine.
I always get told, you talk too much.
You're on.
So, colleagues, good morning, and thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm the third social scientist here. Yesterday there was one, and Raki's approach was the social scientist approach, and that's the transdisciplinary approach that we are talking about. I'm fascinated to be here because I'm here to better understand what you are doing, apart from what I've read and so on. And that makes me excited. I heard yesterday that you want to develop some model, and that has a direct bearing on the communities, and that fascinates me. So I can answer most of your things. For example, whose responsibility is to communicate a message when life and death is at stake? Is it the weather people? Is it a national command center? Is it an advisory forum that commands that center? So these are the issues that we have, the inadequacies that we have in South Africa. The communication issue, which is strategic. At a time when life and death is at stake, we just need one person to give a command. Right or wrong is a different matter. But the best message would come from a command center who has all the knowledge and in the best interest of the communities at stake. This is what I'm saying. We'd rather say 5 lies when one person dies than having 5 people die, including that one person that's giving the wrong information. So that's the kind of thinking that we are taking you forward to. But I'm very impressed with what's happening here? This one doesn't seem to be going forward. Okay, I think what happened here, we've got this on the memory stick, but we don't have it on the...
There we go. Use the right arrow.
Oh, okay.
No, it's fine.
All right. So where do I come from? I work with the national, with the special advisors to the UNISDR in terms of disaster risk management. In the UK, I spent 6 weeks with them to understand the multidisciplinary nature of what happens during a disaster. For example, in South Africa, we may have a critical event such as a drought, and we may have a critical event such as a fire. But we need to understand that the drought is a slow onset disaster in where we have some time to play with, whereas the fire is a rapid onset disaster and time is of the essence. And because of ineffective planning, we lost so many lives in Gauteng the other day. So this is the focus of my study, but it is applicable throughout the country and internationally as well. So all that we are doing needs to be against a framework. And the bottom line is, in South Africa, we have, not in South Africa only, throughout the world, we have the youth that is restless. We have democracy is at its weakest. We have unemployment, poverty, inequality, recession, and an uneasy youth. And all this uneasiness can lead to radical volatility. We are seeing that already. So whatever you are doing, what's the background and what's the impact and who's affected the most? So the most vulnerable communities are the poorest. And most often throughout the world, they are the ones that suffer the consequences of whatever event that takes place. Incidentally, we had 3 major events in South Africa in the past few days, which had a profound impact on our democracy. 1, the Proteas. 2, the Springboks. 3, and the ladies' team. All have, in the past week, all have a profound impact on the South African society at large. So the consequences of climate change and disaster, remember, climate change is as a direct result of human behavior. And climate change, the consequences of climate change is a disaster, if you really look at that. And disasters, if not managed effectively, critical infrastructure like the economy is at stake. Leave alone, other important infrastructure, human skills, capacity. All right? And in South Africa, I think there's about 256, 57 or thereabout municipalities, local, municipal, and so on. Very few of them, in terms of the legislation, have the capacity to be able to develop a disaster management plan. So if you have an effective disaster management plan in place, whether at a metropolitan level, district level, or a provincial level, therein resides a disaster management advisory forum, which Colin spoke about yesterday. And in that forum, weather services plays a critical component, okay, to communicate one single command message. So having said that, we're working in society at different levels. From an academic point of view, you'll talk about Bloom's taxonomy to cater for all levels of functioning in a classroom. Even amongst the scientists, we have different categories of people that I think, and we function at different levels. So when we, from a social science perspective, who are we working with? Are we working with the masses where the impact is felt? Or are we working with people that, we want to get into research journals? So that is of major essence for us, for some of us. All right. So this is where I was. So you don't want to know about my problem statement. Problem statement is actually we established a gap. We want to fill in that gap. And how do we do that? And so we've designed a model that can better understand whose role is what, who does what, to bring a semblance of normality. So when I talk about a semblance of normality, let me talk to you about something that is not there, but there were 2 major, there's very few people at municipal level, political level, that understands the definition of a disaster. Everything now is a disaster. Now, but we have perfect legislation, not perfect, near perfect legislation, which gives us a good guide of what we need to develop. But like we spoke about the other day, the implementation is an issue. And that's why we developed a model to be able to better understand, bring it down to brass tacks, to grassroots, to understand who needs what. And we worked with the communities across the length and breadth of South Africa in the different municipalities and different stakeholders. Our very first stakeholder was the communities that knew very little about schooling, Well, that's where the knowledge was. That's where we found a lot of knowledge that we could infuse into our model that we were using today. So we use a general systems theory. I think you know about the theory. What you put in rubbish. Don't expect gold. So we did vulnerability assessment, hazard and risk assessment, and so on. And we found, look, we listed all the hazard types, who's vulnerable, what is vulnerable, and what is risk, what is at risk, and what do we do without all this information? We can't generate all this information and let it go. To give you an idea, I worked with City of Cape Town, both Collins provincially and at the city also. Ekurhuleni, because it's an erythropolis. And erythropolis is a city that is designed in the middle of rail and road and industrial factory sites and so on. If there's a major, and the airport is also around that, and if there's something of critical, and if an event of critical nature takes place, the economy of the country is at stake. We can't take the premier of a province and put him at the epicenter of an event if his life is so important. And we're not here at a, what would you call this, popularity contest. Like what happened in the event, you know. So triangulation, we validated, we confirmed whatever we found. Do the findings really matter? Does it have an impact, and with whom? And who should be judged to that, to what our findings were? Does it fit into scientific rigor, academic rigor? So we did the triangulation check. We used. Now, is that enough? Does it comply with the Sustainable Development Goals? Does it fit into the National Development Plan? Where are we in our work that we've done? So let's talk about early warning systems. I spoke to you already about fire and drought, slow onset disaster. A few years ago, I spoke to Raki about an incident that took place a few years ago where quite a few of the countries were involved. So I met a colleague of mine in Sri Lanka who was from Sri Lanka in the UK, and she devised an intervention system, an early warning system to warn communities throughout the world in the event of a tsunami. And the response time would be 10 minutes. So you have 10 minutes to do whatever, evacuation, whatever, clear the site and so on. So that was interesting for me, okay. But early warning systems are there. For example, in an informal settlement in South Africa, what would, for a flood, for example, what would be your early warning system in the absence of scientific models? So we would have a measurement stick, say, for example, 1 meter, 2 meter, and, calibrated to give us a height of and the flow and so on. Someone would do that. You plant a stick somewhere near a volunteer's place, and when the flood level reaches a certain height, and then it's time to communicate that message to evacuate to higher levels. So do we have a church or venue or a school or a church or venue to evacuate and to go and assemble there? We don't have. So that's the kind of information we need to send out. Oh, early warning systems, okay? So we have a major issue between climate change and disaster risk reduction, and the issues that play together. For example, policies. So what do we do? In a developing country like South Africa and many other countries throughout the world, we cannot have a separate entity for climate change, another department for disaster risk reduction. Scarce resources, skills are at play. So if we bring two of them together, bring the policies together, we can save on critical, we can save a lot of money and skills. Monitoring and evaluation of both those events, should they happen at the central point. Okay. So we developed a model so that we can give to everyone else, especially at municipalities. Like I said, about 256, 57 municipalities. Very few have disaster risk management plans in place. In fact, it's risk management rather than the difference between disaster management and disaster risk management is one is proactive and one is reactive. A disaster management talks about managing a disaster when it takes place. That's too late. Managing the risks of a disaster is proactive, putting systems into place. Should the event take place, the impact would be minimized. Okay, so that's and then we've made some recommendations, policy changes, get the politicians out of the way. Well, you can do that next year. Monitoring and evaluation, keep the politicians at bay because their responsibility is possibly strategic and operational issues is at an administrative level where the DG spoke about some issues the other day, climate change responses and so on, climate change adaptation. Look, we don't need to invent the wheel. Since time immemorial, man has been adapting. Historically, you look at the tools, adaptation is there. All right, but so what do we do? Times have changed. We need to modernize that, but in a way that it's compatible with the communities. It's acceptable to the communities. That's where the knowledge is. So, having said that, revise the policies, centralize monitoring and evaluation, do capacity building. We don't have capacity. Some of the capacity or most of the capacity that we do have, some of them have left us for greener pastures. And we don't blame anyone for leaving. We blame ourselves. We can take responsibility for that. Climate change adaptation forum at local level. We're supposed to have a disaster management advisory forum in every municipality, in every district, at every center. We don't have that. Maybe we can do that. Grassroots level, get all of us involved. So, include local community in all activities, whatever it is, disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, whatever. I tried to reduce this to a level that can make it as user-friendly as possible to avoid all the technical jargon. I think I've tried. We'll take your questions and comments. Thank you very much.
Got about 2 or 3 minutes for questions. Anyone? Right, Rob.
Many thanks, Logan, for this overview. I have one question. It's about how to make in practice happen that third bullet you have the climate change adaptation for or say just early warning engagement at a community level. My question is, how do you think can this be achieved at scale? Because what we saw, I'll just demonstrate my question with an example. What we saw with the Durban plans is that it was researchers from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. They worked in one community, known as the Quarry Road community, one of 200 wards in Durban, over a long time. They knew the community leaders, there was trust, and when the warning eventually came through late on the 11th of April, the strong guided warning. They contacted the community leaders, they evacuated at night, and hundreds of lives were probably saved in that community. But in the under 199 wards, there was nothing like that in place. So the question is, yes, that's a good idea. That needs to happen, but it's free. But how do you do this at scale? Across all municipalities, all vulnerable communities. How We're such a small community. How do we get it?
Yeah, thank you very much, Francois. Look, it's not only interesting, it's a very, very relevant kind of. So, look, I work in a village voluntarily, in a village that doesn't have water, and they have a dilapidated school. And so when I needed to get there, I needed to get the permission first. I needed to do a needs analysis. If the community is a significant role player in my institution and takes ownership of that, then in my experience in disaster management advisory forum, at a provincial level. And then if you talk about stakeholder engagement, you survey the climate of that institution. For example, if you take the institution of this institution and survey the climate, get the feel of what is happening, of the culture in this institution. That's part of a needs analysis. And then from there, work on what are the needs of the community, of the participants in this institution. Similarly, we get into a stakeholder engagement, get a ranking, a rating, an understanding of how it is functioning and operating. So how do we get there? We need to get permission from the communities and get into it. It depends if it's a rural community, the head of the community, you need to get a buy-in. Remember, as a researcher, you would know if you're working in a municipalities or any other institution, that people at that institution will be reluctant to give you information because they think you are going to expose them. So we need to wangle our way and get round and win the confidence and the trust to say, what is it that we have to do? I found that in the Kuruleni municipality and city of Cape Town, I had to get a buy-in and go back and report back about my findings and keep all my information confidential, non-disclosure, those kind of things. But there is a way. Maybe we can talk about it, like.
Thanks, Logan. One more short question at the fine.
Easy question or what?
It's sorted. We're going to move on to the next talk. Thank you, Logan. Much appreciated.
Okay.
So next we turn to the weather office. Let's get Jesse, would you just sort out this thing here? So to the South African Weather Service, and Samina and Gwenny are going to talk about climate extreme indices. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Put that onto the show. And I must go to Zoom. It's there, and then I must share. What are you doing? Give it. What you doing? It's this one. You need to. You need a laptop. That's it. Okay. I think you're all set to go. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
You.
Good morning. I think mine is gonna be short, but
Speak a lot louder, please.
Maybe try the microphone if you don't mind.
I know. I'll try to do the audio. So I really think mine is gonna be short, but during the week we've been talking about climate extremes being more frequent and more severe in recent years. And for that reason, the expert team on climate change detection developed a set of indices to monitor these extremes. But the first set of indices was only 27 indices that only focused on climate perspectives of these indices. And then there was a need to develop another suite of indices that caters for other sectors such as agriculture and water resources and all these other sectors. So for us to do that, to calculate the indices for the country, we had 27 stations that are well placed across the country, and for the period 1931 to 2022. But before we calculate these indices, we need to check for data quality and make sure that the data is homogeneous. However, so we first examine droughts that are defined by SPEI at 12 months. We examined heat waves defined by excessive wave factor that caters for minimum temperature and maximum temperature. And then also examine short warm spell duration that are user defined, and number of days where the maximum temperature exceeds 30 degrees Celsius. And then we also checked, examined growing degree days and frost risk days. When we look at the indices that are relevant to health sector, we first looked at the heat waves, and the one on top is on the trend in heat wave number, and the one at the bottom is the trend on heat wave duration. And then we've realized that as you can see, there's a general increase in the number of and duration of heat wave that is observed across the country, particularly the duration of heat wave has increased, particularly in the Cape region and the northern part of the country. And then we also looked at the heat wave frequency and heat wave amplitude. And there's a general increase in a trend in a number of days contributing to heat wave events across the country, except for 2 stations in this case that are not statistically significant. And then there's a general increase in heat wave amplitude at the station, showing an increase in trends. And then also looked at short warm spells. And then we realized, as you can see, there's a general increase as well in a number of days contributing to warm spells. And also a general increase in a number of days, about 2.2 days per decade in a number of days, daytime temperature greater than 30 degrees Celsius observed across the country. And then we also looked at the drought indices, and there's a general increase in the Cape region and northern parts of the country. Also have an increasing trend in growing degree days. However, there's a general decrease in frost risk days. Like I said, it's going to be short. And in summary, we can say from these examples that we've done, there's a general increase in warm extreme events such as heat waves, short warm spell duration, and daytime temperature exceeding 30 degrees Celsius, which is consistent with previous finding of others in this region, and also the global temperature trends. We also find that there's a general increase in drought across the country, with an exception of KwaZulu-Natal and the northern part of Limpopo, as well as the southern part of the Northwest. As so a significant decrease in frost days is observed, and this allows for sowing to move forward and allows to take advantage of warm winters, assuming adequate soil water content. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. You brought us right up to time. You finished at 10 o'clock, so I'm going to take one more question. We're no longer behind schedule, so to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. David. Very interesting. Got me thinking, and I was thinking in terms of applications, and I was thinking, what does it mean, for example, when you say there's the time in cost risk based in terms of, for example, crops that are sensitive to cost, such as tomatoes. What is the future of tomato production in areas traditionally affected by crops such as the high veld? Can we now grow tomatoes and high veld in winter? What about malaria, for example? Is the malaria veld going to move further south again in future?
Yeah, my take is that with nights getting warmer, and days getting warmer as well, that allows for the crops that were not frost resistant to be planted in these regions now or in the near future, because it's getting warmer and warmer and better, and the conditions are conducive for us to grow those crops. And you touched on issues of malaria. With the temperatures getting warmer, I expect that the malaria will now come back south, come back in places like Durban and the places of Gauteng. There's been cases of resurgence of malaria in places like Gauteng.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, one more. Last one, please.
Thanks very much. It's quite insightful. I just want to say, in terms of the significant decrease in cost,
Yes.
it can have an impact on the clearing industry, actually, because they need frost days. So if they don't get frost, they're not going to have a good harvest. Another thing I want to emphasize is, in terms of, yes, generally you can see a significant decrease in frost and days, but it doesn't necessarily say there's not going to be frost. And the case was this year, actually, where in the Liverpool area they had late frost. So there was some of the stone fruit farmers that lost fruit because of late frost. So even though your general trend is going to see significant decrease, in terms of looking at the short-term and medium-term range of warning and forecasting for these frost days, is still important in order for them to cover and hopefully then and not get as much damage as if they're not prepared.
I think we leave it there. Thank you very much, Adina. Right, so we're staying with the South African Weather Service. Christina's going to talk about the return to the Limpopo. Thank you very much.
Okay. We put it over here.
Sorry?
We have lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use tea time to swap over to the other systems.
The USB insists on being the other way around. Which one is it?
Just one.
The top one. I want to actually copy it on the desktop. Okay. Right, I'm going to go here and I'm going to share it on Zoom. So share the screen, and it is that one, and you are ready to go. All yours. Thank you. think we just do one adjustment quickly. Which is here. Just bear with me, everybody. I know how to use this one well because from the rugby. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Yes, so my name is Christina Botai. I'm from the South African Weather Service. I'll be presenting on projected drought impacts over the Limpopo River Basin. This is a portion of a WRC funded project that sourced together with the international collaborators from Kenya we were involved on. And yes, so I'm going to present on just one portion within the deliverable that was mostly focused on the projected climate impacts on water-linked sectors. Okay, how do I move forward?
Use the side arrows, these ones there.
Does it seem to-
Oh,
Yeah.
it's broken. There we go.
Thank you. So this is the outline of my presentation. I'm also thinking that I'll be very quick. So I'll first touch on the introduction, the methodology, and I present the results, and I conclude. So we all know that drought is one of the highly caused weather-related disasters on a year-to-year basis. Its impacts, it's widespread, and it affects people, key economic sectors, as well as the ecosystem. In South Africa, in particular, we have a lot of people, or I can say millions of people, that are at the risk of getting impacted by the recurring drought impacts. And the Limpopo River Basin is one of the areas that has been or is prone to drought impacts. And it has over the years experienced drought impacts that have led to various impacts, including on the agricultural sectors as well as the domestic water supply. And we also, there's overwhelming evidence that climate change is likely to increase the frequency and severity of drought in large parts of Africa, with South Africa being also included as a vulnerable country. So this means that the population, particularly those that are residing in vulnerable regions, need to be better prepared for the future drought, which by reducing the risk and also at the same time increasing drought resilience. So assessment of drought impacts forms the basis in formulating mitigation measures that can minimize future inherent impacts. So this brings now to the aim of this study, which was to evaluate the projected drought impacts over the Limpopo River Basin. So the assessment on these drought impacts actually was we adopted a vulnerability assessment framework, or drought vulnerability assessment framework that was proposed or developed by IPCC, and this was reported in IPCC 2007. So the whole idea in assessing these impacts is that the drought impacts has